I'm Yulia and I'm a paper artist. I make art using paper as my main medium. I think my signature way of working would be as if I'm trying to draw with paper instead of on it. I was born in Moscow. I started in art school when I was just 6 years old. So for me, I never considered doing anything else. When I first came to the UK, I could feel a creative buzz around me. I wanted to become successful, to try new things. Quilling is a paper craft technique that involves strips of paper that are rolled, shaped and glued together to create decorative designs. I made quilling mine by using it in a new way to create letter forms, and this made it more modern. And so I think I gave it a new life with my work. For the past 5 years, I've worked on more than 100 projects, ranging from advertising to editorials, books. Never get boring. For inspiration, I usually go out to local park and I like to sit there and sketching. I like to look in the flowers and I need inspiration for colors because the colors are wonderful. Their combinations are already there. I just need to be observant. I believe nature is the best place to decide what colors go together. There are not just flowers, there are butterfly or other insects, there are tropical fish. You just need to look around and you don't need to invent things, they're already there. My advice would be keep experimenting, but make sure you know that the goal is to find your own style, not to imitate the artist that you like. When I got inspired with Gustav Klimt, I used his work too literally. I used lots of gold paint and I copied some of his motifs and shapes that he uses in his work. Lately, I've started to use this inspiration in a more abstract way. I do love the intricate details that he incorporates in his work. But I also want to make sure the overall image is striking and eye-catching. I was in France in one of the parks. I saw an old man sitting on the bench and feeding pigeons. I decided to incorporate the dynamic mass of these pigeons coming towards him. I used like an old man's face because the theme of old people and age is one of the main ones in my personal work. To try and make a person's face, I think that's one of the most challenging themes in general in art, not just for paper. And that's how I wanted to bring my paper art to a new level. I tried to show like wrinkles, the way the wrinkles look when people squint. I tried to arrange the paper strips in a similar way. It took me quite long, probably the longest out of all of my artworks. I'm making a very simple heart shape. I usually start with darker colors for the outline of the heart, and then I'll be using lighter tints toward the middle of the heart, like a gradient. I think it gives this paper craft technique more visual depth. It's just visually more interesting. Like I have pinks, reds, greens and blues over there. So it just helps to be organized, and it's easier to choose the colors when I know exactly where they are. When you have a thin piece of paper, it's a bit more difficult to shape it, but with thicker card, it's much more flexible and it holds its shape I'm using a cocktail straw. You could use a pencil or anything similar. And I just curl it a couple times. There are special tools. For instance, you can use something like that. But when I started my first work, I needed something, and that's what happened to be in my house. I used the droplet shape quite extensively. And I do use quite a few circles. I do use coils. Start by coiling it in one direction, then I coil it in opposite direction, put them together, cut, and then I will glue the both ends together. This is what I call a drop shape. So this is another little shape. I call it a circle. I start in the same way. Then I do basically a coil, but then I roll it very, very tightly. So you get a little roll of paper. It's very important to try different things because that's the only way that you can move forward. You can't use the same thing over and over again. If you do try something new, then your technique will evolve, your style will evolve, and you won't get bored. I like to redesign my name, which I'm going to use to promote myself. To me, it does look dated. I used it quite a lot for my presentation, for business cards, online, and I think it's time for me to create a new version that reflects my current work better. I print out just the outlines, so it makes it easier for me to sketch. It's inside the letters. Don't necessarily think about paper, I'm just thinking where I want the lines to go. It is very important to make the most of the decisions during the sketching stage, because once I glue the piece of paper, I can't remove it. It uses more of the shapes that I'm currently using. And now I experiment with color. I want to keep the palette close to the initial one. There will be reds, pinks, orange. It is colorful enough. Once the sketch is ready, I trace the design by using embossing tool. This makes sure that when I start gluing my papers that I can see the lines where the papers needs to go. Okay, so I'm gonna start making the first letter. When I start working with paper, I still try to follow my initial sketch as closely as possible, but I still question all my decisions that I've made. That's the first letter done. Still have 4 to go, so you better leave me to it, and I'll see you tomorrow. Last night I filled 3 of the letters with the paper strips, so now only 2 letters left, and then all the elements surrounding the name. But for this particular technique you do have to be quite patient, because this is something that can become a torture unless it suits your personality. This is the last piece going down. Ta-da! So let's see how they look together. I think the new one does look more modern and definitely more eye-catching. You can see the letters straight away, whereas the previous one, it was like you needed some time to read what it says. I hope that it will reflect my work better. I'm looking forward to using it on my business cards and all the other self-promotion materials.